Testosterone is not the answer to everyone's ailments and if they feel depressed or whatever. If you are so low, like if you're in the hundreds or 200s and you're 27 years old, that's a problem.
Now Gilbert helps men optimize testosterone with a natural or on TRT.
There are guys that will go pay like $30 at LabCorp or Quest just to get testosterone. That's great, but that only tells us one piece of the puzzle. That's why getting like full blood work is useful. So Generation Iron is doing a documentary on a queen of men's health, which is me. Basically talking through the whole story of how I developed as a female in the men's health world.
Were you ever able to look into the dosages that these guys were using for testing and BP?
Milligrams, which is no effect. I had a younger guy recently on a consult who's 24 and he'd been training for 2 years. He was like, I'm thinking of getting on cycle. And I'm like, okay, you've been training 2 years? Cool. How about, I was prescribed when I was 12.
12. With your personal experience dealing with clients, how many guys, percentage-wise, have you seen have post-finasteride syndrome?
I would say...
Before starting this podcast, I just wanted to say that ideating steroids for a full show is not widely accepted because it discounts the real work, which is the backbone of this sport. And unfortunately spreads that an unsafe chemical solution is all you need for results. Both of these are antithetical to society's understanding of the sport. And while there will always be some that claim that PEDs are all you need, I would like to deliver an honest message of what is required for achieving top performance, as well as the dangers associated with this route. I received this comment from a user named Nightscarens. But just as a rock climber, the athletes undergoing this path in the sport are willing to put their life on the line for their passion. Just the danger between the two sports is different. Luckily, we do have safety nets in the sport, such as organ imaging and regular blood work. But that doesn't change the high risk one must accept in taking on this competitive lifestyle. 125 grams of carbs, 21 grams of fat, hour cardio. Hopefully we'll be lean enough.
Lay down the rest of the day.
That's the stuff that I was talking with Eric Janicki. Do you know Eric?
I don't know him personally, no.
Okay. Super big, super heavyweight competitor. Was like second place to getting his pro card like twice or something this last year. Still didn't get it, so he kind of threw out in the towel just like the other day and announced that he's just not going to.
He's done.
He's done competing for his health, and I mean the fact that he has kids and all these things too.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize how much it sucks out of you.
It does. But I think that's what makes this sport so amazing, is because we do it for the hard, right? We do it for the difficult. But the other side of the argument is, it's unhealthy and it sucks and it's terrible for you and all these things. But you know, MMA isn't really healthy for you either. So
it's so true.
We do a lot of these things because for sport and for game.
Yeah.
Not really for longevity.
People think deli turkey is not healthy, so.
I mean, in their defense, it doesn't look very healthy, but I don't even know what's going on in most of the deli turkeys, so I don't have any input.
So, like, in the 80s, there was, I think it was brought to our attention, like, how highly processed things like Oscar Mayer and those brands. We're recording, right? Okay. But if you don't buy those brands, like, they do actually make organic deli turkey free of nitrates and other crap. You know, so if you're traveling, it's a great option in my mind, because you go to a grocery store and like, what's one of the quickest things you could do? Okay, you could buy a rotisserie chicken. It's kind of hard to eat that like on the go, you know, or grab like a protein shake. But the people who are saying that it's bad for you and that sodium's bad for you, like, sodium's actually not bad for you. People pound not. Element packets with 1,000 milligrams like all day long. And if you are eating healthy, like, think about if you eat bland all day, you need sodium, you know?
I think it's important for us to clarify that it's easy for us to make a generalization based off of the most common average of person, right? So people are just comparing it to the American diet. So they're just like, sodium's bad for you, but that's because of what these guys are doing for their activity level. They don't require the level of sodium that they're actually using. They have no activity level, so they're not they're not sweating, they don't they're not drinking enough water.
No.
There's a bunch of different things.
But the people who are yelling at me about it are probably drinking alcohol all the time and
not hydrating.
Whey protein's
maybe
processed.
Not being healthy.
Like, yeah. Not hydrating all the right things. But I just didn't realize it would make people so upset. Anytime I talk about diet soda or deli turkey, the internet loses their mind. Like, if you want to piss off the internet, just talk about those things and you'll get such traction. I was like, wow, people are really hurt.
That's insane. Did these mini clips like go viral for you or something, or what?
Yeah.
That's probably where it came from. Whenever a lot of the things go viral, like on TikTok, I feel like it always like it's if it hits that one demographic that is against, like they have an opinion against you, that's where it feeds the algorithm to help the mini clip go viral, which is great for your exposure, but also depends on how much you care about how positive the feedback is. You know what I mean? Same thing as like Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've gotten over the fact that like, you know, the more of these instances or more clips that go viral, like obviously the people that comment and the trolls that come out to take the time to comment the things that they do, obviously something's bothering them. They're hurt, they're triggered. So as hard as it is, like you do develop a thick skin and you get used to it just bouncing off. And, you know, there's so many comments now. It's like you can't keep up. But at first I used to like answer everybody and like defend my position. And then now I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Because obviously coming at me about nitrates and stuff like that. Well, there's deli turkey without nitrates. And I'm like, why am I spending my time arguing this kind of thing, you know? I find it interesting, the topics that do go viral. Like one podcast I did with Dave Tate, I literally was talking about how most guys, he asked me about total testosterone levels. And I would say like most guys, if we're going to just go by total, if they're below 600, they probably don't feel so hot. That went super viral. And I was like, that's the most basic thing. But what it did, tons of comments. Like I think it has over 1,000 comments now of guys talking about their experience getting tested or being dismissed to not get tested for whatever reason, and the levels that they had at the age that they had and why they were dismissed and all these things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this just shows how bad the education around TRT with GPs and stuff like that, but in on Earth, you know. And I was like, wow, like that for me was very eye-opening as to like, there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of guys out there who don't feel well. And I preface that with saying, you know, testosterone is not the answer to everyone's ailments and if they feel depressed or whatever. However, if you are so low, like if you're in the hundreds or 200s and you're 27 years old, that's a problem. It never used to be like that. And I was like, damn, these guys, they feel horrible. They're being dismissed for crazy things like you have a beard, you don't need to be tested. Or you have muscles, you don't need to be tested. Or you're too young, or you might have ADD instead. Like all these reasons to not be tested.
Just
for
assumptions.
Hormones. Yeah, based on appearance.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I don't think anyone should ever make assumptions. I think that's why testing's so important.
No. Like you're younger, so the people that you're around work out, all that stuff. But how much confusion is there in your circle of people, and even people who don't work out that you know, surrounding this topic?
I think the knowledge is steadily increasing, of course, over the course of like the last year or so.
Thanks to your podcast, obviously.
Well, thanks to you. But I think that there is still a lot of misconception around TRT, HRT, gear, stay natural, all these things. I think people are realizing that TRT is very beneficial for a lot of men in today's society, considering testosterone levels are decreasing. But I don't think anyone has any I don't think there's a good understanding or awareness over the percentage of men that may be experiencing this. And then, of course, the other side too is it's not just what levels of testosterone that they have, it's whether they're symptomatic.
Yeah.
Because those are not always related.
No. And I get a lot of DMs where guys are like, hey, you know, my testosterone is this, my free T is this, I'm this age, and I feel XYZ, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, first of all, it's very difficult to diagnose you with anything or provide personal solutions to medical issues. Number one, I'm not a physician. Number two, I don't know anything about you. So I have to understand somebody's diet history, training history, lifestyle. Like, what do you do the other 23 hours that you're not actually going to the gym? Are you going to the gym? Have you tried going to the gym? Are you going to the gym too much? So there's a lot that goes into it, and symptoms can vary per individual, but also they can be very similar to depression, to hypothyroidism, to other hormones that I think focusing so much on testosterone, like my total T numbers, like my bench press number, like that's not really the focus that we have to put on so much. That's why getting like full blood work is useful, because there are guys that will go pay like, I don't know, $30 at LabCorp or Quest just to get testosterone. That's great, but that only tells us one piece of the puzzle. So it's kind of like if someone's like, well, you know, my right shoulder hurts. And then you go to a physical therapist or somebody to get assessed and they test your left ankle. That's only like one part of the picture. Obviously, there's more testing that needs to be done in investigation. So understanding why you're symptomatic has a lot more to do than just testosterone. And I think directly correlating testosterone to one thing, like my sex drive is low, must be testosterone. I don't feel I can gain muscle in the gym, must be testosterone, which is very common because a lot of people will ask, well, if I go on TRT, how fast will I gain muscle? I don't know. What do you eat? How do you sleep? How are you training?
Right.
Plus, you're literally just like replacing what you should already be producing. This is not super physiological levels. So thinking of testosterone as this is my gateway to be able to build the muscle that I can't build is the wrong way to look at it. Or younger guys where I had a younger guy recently on a consult who's 24 and he'd been training for 2 years. And he was like, I'm thinking of getting on cycle. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, I don't know if I should do testosterone or something else. And I'm like, okay, let's have a chat here. You've been training 2 years? Cool. How about we train like 8 more years and see where we land there? And I think that this is something that's becoming more popular.
Right.
Where
that's so hard for a guy to hear.
Yeah.
That wants it.
Yeah. Who wants to wait 8 years? Like,
right.
You know, fuck you, Allie. Like,
exactly what he's
all right, I'm going to go get it, you know, anyway. Or they're going to resort to getting SARMs or something that's easier to get because that's popular now. Even at my gym's very much a meathead gym in Florida. I hear kids, and I call them kids, but they're early 20s. I hear them talking about all the SARMs and like MK677 and all the things that they're seeing on YouTube.
I'm surprised MK is still popular.
It's still popular. And I wanted to go over there and I want to be like, do you want to look like a water buffalo? Like, you know, and I just have to stop myself from going to give advice because they probably don't want to hear it from me. But also it's interesting just to listen as to like, these are the discussions being had. Whereas, you know, I hate saying back in my day, but back in my day before we had cell phones and we were in the gym, the discussion, even with men, surrounded around what are you eating now? Like, what's your diet like? What's your training like? And now it's like, well, what are you running? What SARMs do you have? Are you on a cycle? And I know that was like a major tangent, starting with like TRT.
No, it's a good tangent.
Yeah.
It's what everybody wants to hear, really.
Yeah.
This podcast.
But it's the truth.
Cycle.
It's the truth, right? And I guess that if I were growing up in this era and there was so much information that was easily accessible with so many people talking about it as if it were normal, it would be similar to how like rap music normalizes promiscuous behavior in the 90s, like when we were listening to Lil' Kim, and I guess now it's more like Cardi B or WAP or whoever is offended by whatever these days. But, you know, that would drive like how we would act and the things that we would be attracted to. And now this is just like, it's like a normal thing for younger guys, I think, to get in the gym, they have to have these supplements, this pre-workout. That stuff didn't really exist when I was younger. It was really like drink a gallon of milk, go eat a steak, like make sure you're eating enough to train. And then, pre-workout starting becoming more popular. And this was also when we had things that actually worked, like fat burners that worked and stuff that they pulled from the shelves because they worked. Pro hormones and all those things. Like people were into them, but it wasn't as mainstream, especially at the younger level that it is now.
The fat burners and the pro hormones.
Yeah. Like SARMs weren't a thing so much back in, the late 90s, like early 2000s. Like I graduated college in 2003, and no one really talked about that stuff. So it was like shortly after androstenedione was illegal in the NCAA and stuff like that. Damn, I'm dating myself. But also being a female, that wasn't really like the circle I ran in, but being around a lot of guys, because I majored in exercise science, which is predominantly male major, the guys would talk about this stuff. But it was nowhere near like casual conversation at a gym like it is now. And I think that's where a lot of guys get themselves in trouble is early on. They're taking SARMs, they're taking things that shut down their production of many hormones. And then as they get older, they wonder, oh no, my dick doesn't work now. I have no sex drive. I don't feel good. What's wrong with me? And they get a hormone panel done and everything is just tanked.
Real quick, guys. So while I was looking at the YouTube analytics, I actually saw that 85% of you guys that watch this channel are not subscribed. And I want to ask very little of you guys, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you find value in it, then please do me this one favor and subscribe to the channel, because doing so helps me get bigger and greater guests like the guests you are listening to today. Also, this channel is not sponsored, which means only the companies that I work with, which are Young LA and Huge Supplements, are the companies that can help fund this channel by you guys using the code NILE. So code NILE gives you a discount of 15% off of Young LA, and code NILE also gives you a discount of 10% off of Huge Supplements. And if you decide to purchase anything from any of these companies, it will help immensely for me by using my code. And this way, I can travel to other guests, such as Dr. Mike Israetel next week, and also upgrade in equipment to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. We did have this conversation, I think, in our last podcast, but that I had encountered people that I was actually surprised, because I had the assumption. I mean, I think it's easy for us to make any assumptions based off of ourselves and kind of forgetting that everybody is vastly different, including their experiences and their knowledge. But I was kind of surprised to see two people come up to me and discuss like why they feel like crap. Turned out one of them ran a cycle like a year ago, never PCT'd. And the other one also planning to run a cycle, doesn't know anything about PCT or anything afterwards, but still wants to run the cycle. The kid is like 32 years old, even though he looks a lot younger, the second one. But still, I would actually hope to see someone like in that place have more knowledge and awareness over it, especially if they don't even understand the concept of PCT, which I feel like is a very, very, very basic concept. Like, I think you should at least understand that in the realm of bodybuilding, there's PCTing, and then there's also cruising, and there's just being on tier. There's things that are important to know, so you don't have to go through a male PMS.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah.
And also, like, terms like sports TRT or TRT plus were not a thing up until recently. And I'm very glad that there's a lot of coverage on this on YouTube and podcasts and everything, so that kids can become educated or people. But I still think that there's a lot of reckless behavior surrounding it, because this can affect your future. And if somebody wants kids, or if they want to feel good, like, you can't stay on these things forever.
Right. I do like the idea of running HCG like year round with the cycle. Now, I would be interested to hear people's feedback or people's like argument against me saying that. But just from me, like, talking with other, I guess, fairly knowledgeable people like Vigorous Steve, doing HCG during cycles, from the people I know and my own experience, seems to keep the loads pretty big, keep the balls pretty big, keep the fertility pretty pretty high. It's whenever HCG hasn't been run for like years on end while the person was on cycles on end, where I see more chance of a higher level of infertility. That's just like an example. There's a lot of other things that could be done right.
And I love Steve. And I remember last year we were both speaking at Swiss together, and I think he had just recently come off of test and was on HCG only.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding what the best fertility protocol is. Plus, a lot of misconceptions surrounding, like, does testosterone actually make you infertile? And I think a lot of guys think that this is like a surefire way that I'm never going to have kids. There are tons of bodybuilders taking grams of test, and then all of a sudden their wife gets pregnant. And I have friends who have competed who've taken not only a lot of test, but other things that are known to shut you down, and they still are able to conceive, and they didn't even want kids.
Yeah.
So if it worked as well for male contraception, that's what guys would go on for male contraception, but it doesn't work that way. And maintaining or preserving the fertility, there is a process to go through. So if a younger guy wants to have children in the future and needs to go on testosterone, I am a big fan of him going on testosterone if that's what he needs over Clomid and Clomiphene or HCG only. And the reason being is that he's going to feel a lot better. It's bioidentical to what he naturally produces. He should get a sperm test beforehand, though, because it can compromise fertility, but at what level, that's unknown unless we get a sperm test beforehand. And then if he goes on testosterone, then doing sperm tests throughout his time on testosterone. And then when the time comes to where he does want to conceive, he can run HCG alongside FSH, which is bioidentical to men. That can be done within a 4 to 6 month window of perceived conception, and it works very well. FSH is a little bit more expensive, and it is tougher to get. It's only some pharmacies that make it. But not every man does well in HCG. Some guys do great, and they feel amazing. Other men, they have mood issues. It just does not make them feel as good, anxiety, stuff like that. And it's not bioidentical to guys. It is a female pregnancy hormone, so they don't have a deficiency in that. So some guys experience more symptoms with that. So instead of hammer HCG with testosterone right away, let's start with testosterone first if that's what's needed. I'm a big advocate for that for my younger guys and our younger clients.
The last podcast, Chase Irons basically told me about his story about how he wanted to get his wife pregnant, and he's been running grams of gear for years on years on years. And there was one point where, don't want to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said his fertility was basically zero. Sperm count was basically zero. And then he jumped on HCG, and I think, I'm trying to remember, does 7,000 sound right? It was like still below the reference range.
For what?
Like sperm count.
Oh, yes, that's low, I think.
Right? Yeah.
You want it in the millions.
Oh no, maybe it was. Do you remember what the range is?
I don't.
You know what? I'm just
going to Google that.
Yeah.
Chase, I love Chase. So I was sitting in the audience. So he also spoke at the same event Steve and I were speaking at.
So normal sperm densities range from 15 million to greater to 200 million sperm per. And he said his first round of HCG, after several months, he finally got to 7 million, which is still half of the lowest. And then finally, he said he added in the big guns, added in the FSH, waited several more months. And I think it got it up to maybe like 12 million, 10 or 12 million. So not even quite up to 15 million, but he still got his wife pregnant on it.
Yeah.
So it worked for him.
It does work really well.
And the ECG.
And he was on a PED panel at Swiss, and he was sitting next to actually my doctor, Eric Serrano. And I forget what the question was, but he made a clip out of it, and he went off on what he takes. And when he was on, like, I think it was like 20 IUs of growth.
18 IUs.
Yeah. And he was going over everything that he was on, and then my doctor was just like shaking his head. It was hilarious, but he's a trip. I like him.
Yeah,
he's a good dude. But yeah, FSH pretty much, or HMG, which is another one, but it would be redundant to run that in addition to FSH. FSH with HCG is pretty popular for fertility, and it works really well. He pinned it.
All day right now. I do use testosterone.
Whoa.
1.5 of each.
1.5 cc's of each.
Every day.
Ooh. Yeah.
I do.
She's like
20 to 24 IUs of Serostim a day. Using a lot of stuff. Getting blood work does not mean that it puts an end to your ability to keep growing, keep progressing, keep taking more gear, essentially, because you can do this reasonably, like with reasonably good blood work. I mean, my last blood work, Steve evaluated it on his channel. It's not a death sentence to your gains. Go get your blood work so you can see where everything's at.
Yeah, it was funny though, the reaction.
Yeah, it's pretty insane because his dosages are fucking nuts,
dude. We were all
it's
like,
just everyone's different.
Yeah, and like you talk to him and he like seems normal. Like he wasn't like hyperventilating when you speak to him.
Right. I mean, obviously, whenever the haters, there's like, most people are always supporting, a majority of people are supporting, but we just look at the one or two comments. That's like a hate comment that, you know, someone defaultly thinks, or the first thought that comes to their mind, they decide to say that, right? Normally reaction versus response. I think a lot of people are more inclined to just post their reaction as a comment, as a potentially anonymous account on social media, because it feels good.
Yeah.
But anyways, with these reactional comments, if they're looking at gearhead and they don't approve of like gearheads, then they're going to pinpoint something like, oh, if they hear his breath louder, then they're going to say it's because of that. It's just how it is. Same thing as we discussed on my like last few podcasts, how like my breathing has been like loud into the microphone, aside from the fact that I put my microphone close to my face because I think it sounds better. But
should I deep throat mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, that fucking girl in first grade or whatever, first or second grade, she was just sitting right behind me while I'm in class, and I always sound like a pug. Ever since I was a kid, always sound like a shitty ass pug because I had crazy allergies and just couldn't breathe through my nose ever. She just turns to me and she's like, "Can you just stop breathing?" I'm just like,
do you snore?
What am I supposed to do? Yeah, I snore. I got checked for sleep apnea, and they said I stopped breathing 3 to 4 times per hour, and to be qualified for sleep apnea, you have to stop breathing at least 5. But people will also stop breathing hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Same thing as like the whole 15 million to 200 million sperm.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like below the 15 million, so I don't have sleep apnea. But they did an x-ray. It cost like $3,000 for the entire checkup, which was fucking insane. But I mean, it was a apnea clinic that just checked everything for me. They offered a mouthpiece for me to sleep in, so I was thinking about trying that, but I want something that'll help me breathing throughout the entire day because I have allergies, and according to them with the x-ray, I have a very, very narrow nasal cavity, so adding allergies in there just kind of makes it impossible to breathe.
Yeah. So it's not like,
and I also have asthma since I was like 6 years old. So I don't know. I guess I could probably just get surgery for it. That's what they offered.
Oh.
That's what they offered. But they said, I mean, obviously that's normally people's like last resort. And they noticed it does help people breathe better. It does. The main reason a lot of people want it is because it helps them to stop snoring. But then for some reason, I think several years later, people start snoring again. But if it helps me breathe better throughout the day, then that's the most important part for me.
Yeah, so that actually, it's really common too. And even in people who aren't obese, like we'll have guys who have sleep apnea, or you can see it in the labs because that can be a contributor to some elevated markers in the CBC. And when they get bigger, like when traps get bigger and all of that, that can be something that is obstructive. But then also I'll advise them to go to an ENT specialist because you got to find the root cause. Because the CPAP is not something that a lot of people want to end up with. It's very hard to sleep with. It's not sexy.
I honestly really wanted to try it out for the sake of it, but
just to see if it helped.
Yeah, but honestly, I realize now after getting the test, like it's kind of, it's a little redundant for me. I just like to perfect my life, and I like to find all the ways that I can like biohack and make my life literally at like top performance level. But if I don't need it for sleep apnea, then I don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they won't give it to you just to have fun with. Just experiment.
I agree though. I'm not going to be wanting to like run. I'm not going to be wanting to take that, especially like if my partner's like sleeping with me. That's going to be insane. That would suck a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then especially traveling with it's a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. So that's why the mouth guard's a great solution. A lot of people don't realize you can get that. So if you guys do test to have sleep apnea, that can be something to get.
My buddy that's on the Young Only team, he's a bodybuilder too, Vaughn Walker. He has this tape that he puts on his nose all the time. And they're telling me to get that, him and my boy Roman, because you just stick it on there and leave it the whole day, and it just helps them breathe so much better.
Oh, and it expands the nostrils,
and that's something I really need. But
those have been around forever.
Right. But the thing is, it's also like temporarily symptomatic. It's like as long as you're wearing it, kind of. So
you can wear it all day, like Hormozy. Yeah,
that's what we were thinking. That's what we were talking about. Yeah. We were talking about Hormozy just wearing it everywhere and filming his shit with it too. So I could, but
I wonder if that would help, like when you're training.
Good, potentially.
Or if you do, when you do cardio, do you do nasal breathing? You try.
I try to. If I can breathe through my nose, I will. Which I think most of the time, by the time I'm doing cardio and I've finished lifting, I can breathe better. Yeah, it's easier for me to breathe through my nose. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just hot and I don't know. I can't explain it. But as for the cardio though, surprisingly, my cardio has actually gotten better over the course of this prep, which I would have expected it to do the opposite, considering that I'm running a cycle for a competition. But
why do you think it's gotten better?
I don't know. Maybe just because I'm doing a lot of cardio every day, I guess.
Because that's like a duh. But
right, exactly. But you would think that like that's normally, the cardio is normally like for the sake of risk aversion and for decreasing the risk and decreasing the effects on your cardiovascular system, right? Because what's normally expected is your cardiovascular system gets worse as you're running this heavy of a cycle. But for me, I think my heart rate has gotten better. Like I'm like doing the same level of Stairmaster, but then my heart rate is lower than it was like 6 weeks ago. So I don't know.
That's honestly one of the easiest. So cardio is like the easiest way to bring down resting heart rate and blood pressure.
Right.
Which is mind blowing because that's not the first go-to for a lot of people. It's blood pressure meds, beta blockers, other things.
You think that's normally the first go-to for
older guys with certain doctors? Yeah.
Okay.
Or if they have high blood pressure.
I see.
That's the first question I always ask. If a guy says, I have high blood pressure, I don't do a lot of cardio, because men in general don't like people in general, but men tend to not do cardio because they're afraid it'll make their muscles fall off, or they'll get small, or they'll just melt. And they equate that to like ultra endurance runner, right? Marathoner.
Right.
Completely different build. So people gravitate to the sport that they're built for typically. So powerlifters would not gravitate toward marathons. And if they do, then, have at it. But you're unlikely going to see somebody with a powerlifting build running a marathon, or at least competing in marathons successfully, and vice versa. So when people have said historically, like, oh, I want to be, a small compact runner, and this is mostly women, and they're not built for it, it's not like running is going to turn you into that. So where I'm going with this is that if you are competing in ultra endurance events, like you're going to run across America, or like, cycling or something like that, then yes, that can have a negative effect on your muscle growth. But low intensity aerobic training, the impact that it has, which you're experiencing, allowing you to lower your resting heart rate, it does allow you to recover a lot quicker between sets, but also between workouts. And it allows you to eat more. So I say cardio is anabolic, and people look at me strange. And I'm like, well, if you think about, you have the platform of a house, you would never put all the foundation and everything accessories on top of it without the foundation. Aerobic work is like the foundation. If you have a good foundation of aerobic health, that's basically what happens when you eat food. Is the process that your body puts that food through requires the cells that make energy, which can be built through cardio, which are the mitochondria, which we learned in bio, that are the powerhouse of the cell. It's the only thing like anyone really remembers. Yeah. So I'm not going to go through like the Krebs cycle, but there is a process that happens when you eat food and it goes into your cells and your body's like, oh, cool. What am I going to do with this? I'm going to make energy from it. If you have a high body fat and a very low aerobic condition, your body's like, I don't understand what to do with this. So I'm just going to kick it out. And that's what insulin resistance is. Mm-hmm. So your body resists it. So there's a lot of benefits to that. And the heart health is also one of them. Mm-hmm. And it can be used to burn calories and stuff like that. But honestly, anybody that we've taken in coaching where they've done zero cardio and then we've had them do a phase of aerobic training, it's not like forever you're going to be doing cardio all the time. Mm-hmm. They feel better. They sleep better. They recover better. And they actually like it. They're like, I get a lot of creative stuff done. Or I feel good during this. Like right now, you probably don't feel good doing your cardio, but if you had enough calories to support what you're doing, you probably feel a lot better.
I do feel tired, but I still get a high from it. Even when I'm feeling, even being on as low calories as I am.
Yeah. The runner's high doesn't have to mean running either.
It doesn't.
It can be the Stairmaster, which I love. Do you do like the kickbacks with ankle weights?
Yes. How'd you know?
I just had a feeling. You seem like that type of guy.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Fucking sick.
I got him to laugh. That took all his energy now.
Can you tell I'm a little bit tired? Anyways, I want to say this before we keep going because some of these people haven't seen the last podcast. But if you guys are wondering, Gilbert helps men optimize testosterone whether natural or on TRT, get jacked, lean, healthy, as well as normalize boner talk. Is that something that we can still say?
I don't know.
Just triggers a few people.
Yeah. I think not from like an offensive standpoint, but more so like a violation of someone's community standards type of thing. Like I think my team puts an asterisk, whatever, in a boner.
Okay, gotcha.
Say that. I don't know.
Well, last time we discussed these things, we went really deep into our issues with health, wellness, mental health, and sexual health and erectile dysfunction, which I really enjoyed that talk because most people don't ever talk about that. Most guys don't talk about that either. I even, like, people appreciated it when we discussed it, but I had a podcast. I don't know if it was not the podcast with Togi. Maybe it was the podcast with Tanner, his coach, but they're like, obviously there's going to be a few men that are just like, why would you, like, that's kind of ridiculous that like you're this age and you need need Cialis, or that you're even discussing sexual dysfunction, and I'm just like, you guys realize like you probably have a lot of problems that other people don't, that you don't want to talk about. But when you have something that's going okay that other people have problems with, probably because of genetic predisposition, I think it would be a wise and laudable thing for you as a human being to not judge other people who aren't like you. So this is just a generalization. Like, I think people should always be like this. I think this just holds you to be a high value man. But
no, I can definitely stand by that statement. I think people are very quick to judge if something makes you happy and you're not harming anybody or being destructive, do what makes you happy, because honestly, more people need to be like that. And if somebody wants to wear something or do something crazy, in the gym or whatever, we may not agree with it. Mm-hmm. That's okay. If they're happy, if people just want to do Zumba all day, cool. If you're happy, rock on. Mm. Who am I to judge?
So what are the biggest reasons why that you personally have seen men having issues with their sex drive?
So this to reiterate, if in case people didn't watch our other episode, I do get a lot of DMs with guys who struggle with this. And they do think that, oh, it's testosterone and I need to get testosterone. And actually, sometimes it's not, because it really has to do with everything else going on in your life. And like you said, everyone has struggles. Everybody has problems. Everybody has something going on that they don't talk about openly. And this could be a symptom of that stress. And I think part of it has to do with previous relationships. So that's something a lot of guys don't really explore too much. So similar to you having the girl telling you stop breathing, there could be many guys in high school who had a very poor sexual experience, or in college, and that has stuck with them through adulthood. And if they haven't gone on testosterone, they may think it's tied to their hormones, but it could be tied to just subconscious trauma. And I'm not one to be like, heal your traumas and confront that or whatever. Like, yes, those are things that are good to explore and to identify, but then what do you do with that? So understanding why you may feel a certain way when you become sexually active with somebody could then definitely help you understand that you not being able to obtain an erection or achieve an erection or just maintain a stiff boner could be a result of the fear that you have from a previous relationship. Whether she commented on the size, she didn't like how it curved, you couldn't perform, or you had premature ejaculation, or you had delayed ejaculation, whatever the reason, think about, did you have that type of relationship? If not, then, all right, where else could this issue be coming from? Have you tried PEDs before? Did you do a PCT? Did you try SARMs? Did you try other things? No. Okay. What other direction are we going to go? What's your lifestyle like? If you are not in shape, and I determine in shape as men who are trending down towards 15% body fat or lower, that could also be a contributing factor. Because if you're not working out or basically doing things that are making you healthy, you're not going to get the right type of blood flow down there. Your arteries and your veins and your entire endothelial system is not going to be in a place that can support a healthy erection. Smoking, one of the biggest reasons that can be contributing to that. Certain medications, going down the list, stress levels. So I think last time I talked about the impact that stress has on men's erections. So when you think of the nervous system, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. And I think that's science class 101. And then the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So if you're driving on the freeway and somebody does a hard stop in front of you, like that's fight or flight. In no way whatsoever are you going to be able to be like, yeah, I can perform sexually, like I'm about to get rear-ended or something like that. Mm-hmm. Same with the gym analogy that I used, where somebody's doing a PR in a back squat or something, you're coming out of the hole, you're literally like, shaking, you're holding your breath. At that moment, you can't switch gears and then pop a boner. That's the same impact that stress has. So parasympathetic, you're able to achieve an erection. Sympathetic is more ejaculation. If you're resting, if you're chilling out, if you're, sitting next to your partner watching TV, or if you're just laying down or you're laying on the beach or whatever, that is a more relaxed state. You're more likely to better able achieve an erection then. And I think nowadays we live in such a high stimulative environment. We're constantly on our phones. We're constantly doing things like playing video games. We're stressing out. The world moves very fast. We have apps. We have all these things to get everything that we need right away. And all these entertainment things that we're just always stressed. We don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of guys can kind of take an audit as to how they spend their time. How much are they on social media? How much porn are they watching if they're watching porn? Like, what are the things that are causing you to be hyperstimulated that maybe you just can't relax? Are you overworked? We used to have work hours. Now work hours bleed into home hours because we have email access constantly. So as you can see, it's multifaceted and there's so many different reasons. But my point is that it's not just isolated to testosterone. It can be a contributing factor, but it doesn't mean that. Because there are guys, as you know, they'll go on TRT or they'll go on testosterone and they'll have the same problem. Or they had great erections and then they went on testosterone and then all of a sudden they got worse. That's because testosterone is a very sympathetic hormone. So it's further driving that fight or flight and they need to chill out. So basically just go lay on a beach. Because we all have time for that. But it is like my heart goes out to these guys because they're like, no matter what I do, or, you know, I've tried Viagra, I've tried Cialis, I've tried all these things. And it's difficult to do this over Instagram. Whereas we actually have a coaching client who had no libido. And he was, or is, I want to say he's like 35. And on our initial call, I was trying to understand why this could happen. And he's not on testosterone. And he said, I do a lot of public speaking. I speak at events. And I noticed that when I go to these events, my libido is a lot higher. And I was like, interesting. Give me the rundown of what you do every day when you're home. He would train 2 hours a day. He was eating around 1,800 calories. And it was sporadic. Some days it would be 1,800. Some days it would be like 1,500. And I was like, dude, you're training 2 hours a day? He's like, yeah, well, sometimes more. Okay, so 2+ hours a day on 1,800 calories. That's a problem. And he's like, yeah, I feel the more I work out, like the less libido I have. And I was like, and what happens when you go to these events? What are you eating when you go to the events? And he's like, well, they're kind of like cheat meals. Like, I don't really eat that well. And I was like, bingo. Like, this totally, to me, glaringly obvious that he's not eating enough to support a healthy libido. Because when you starve yourself, your body's not like, oh, shit, I don't have enough fuel to keep you alive. Let's go procreate. No, your body's like, yeah, we're not going to go procreate right now because we do have to keep you alive and surviving. So it's not going to prioritize a healthy erection and a healthy sex drive when it literally is trying to allow your organs and everything else to just keep functioning. So there are several guys that we've coached. We've just literally increased their calories and their libido has come back. And that is literally after they've tried all these medications. They've tried reducing certain medications that they have to be on. They've tried, not doing certain behaviors maybe that they knew were detrimental, whatever. They've tried like literally everything, the entire kitchen sink, and it just happened to be calories.
When can a guy tell whenever it may be calories or diet that is causing him to have sexual dysfunction?
So the way you feel now, right, during prep, that over the course of months can really start to run you down. And the more run down somebody feels, and then the more like irritable, because literally when you don't eat, if you get hangry, think of that feeling all the time. And if somebody has dieted to the point where, and I'm not talking about prep dieting, I'm not talking about competing, I'm literally talking about like a normal guy, because normal guys will tend to slash calories very harshly and increase the amount of activity. So let's put it this way. If you've lowered your calories and increased your activity by either adding cardio or adding jujitsu or adding rucking, that could be a sign that it could be a calorie difference. Because if you had a good sex drive or a high sex drive before this happened, and then this is literally the one thing that you've done where you lowered calories and increased activity at the same time, and it's been a while and you haven't really replenished calories or gone to maintenance for a week or so, then that could be a reason for it. Because I've found that to happen a lot, where it's the same. I feel exhausted, I can't concentrate, I have no sex drive. I don't really want to train, but I do. I like the gym. That could be one of the signs. Motivation to train is one of the first signs of somebody overtraining. Because when that goes and you're somebody who enjoys working out, then you know.
Yeah. Right. It's crazy too how literally just like one day of replenishing or one day of resting can just change it completely. I noticed for me personally, whenever I'm like in a huge deficit, say like right now, for example, assuming that I wasn't about to go on stage, if I had one nice big ass refeed today with a lot of healthy fats and then a lot of like hydration, including sodium, and then a full night's rest, tomorrow my libido would be higher and I would feel a lot better for sure. Easily.
I'm sure just thinking of that gets you hard.
One day. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially the fats.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cause cause your body's like, oh my God, thank you. Mm-hmm. Like I have,
it's crazy. Like even if you're on TRT, you still feel that.
Yep. It's not magic. And I wish guys would understand that, because literally it has everything to do with what you're doing. The time outside you just inject yourself. We had one client who's a BJJ fighter, and he went to a camp for 5 days where they trained 3 times a day. And he's the kind that loves to be lean year round. Mm-hmm. And I was like, listen, you have to eat enough to support what you're doing. So sure enough, he gets back and he's like, I'm so exhausted, I can't move from the couch. And I said, take the next few days off. What does he do? He goes and drills, he goes and lifts, and then he goes to comp class. Then he's like, I feel bloated. I feel awful. My heart rate is 10 beats per minute higher. And I was like, I told you, what does the scale say? And he's like, yeah, it's up like 6 pounds. And I was like, sounds about right. We've been through this before. And he's been with me many years. And I'm like, let's take the next 3 days off. Can we do 3 days? Just chill. Because you know as well as I do, like that will just bring inflammation down. But your body's like, what the fuck? You know, just that alone can do so much.
Right.
Sleep.
This is why, in terms of bodybuilding, or even just any lifestyle, that you care about, fitness or body composition, slow changes, long cycles always seem the best. And the easiest way to just generalize something, I feel, just like a slow bulk or a slow cut where your body has time to adapt. Same thing as a slow reverse diet. That's where it's like you will feel best at the place that you want to be. Because if you're rushing anything, your body's just going to feel rushed, and it's going to backtrack, and it's going to pull back, and it's going to be like, yo, I'm fucking suffering right now, so please give me something.
Yeah, it's going to resist. And that's really hard because, number one, the comparison game with social media, right? So people see that and they're like, well, this person got their results quicker than me. And that's like the quickest way to feel awful. You know, doing it slow. That's why I always tell people this is a long game. Playing the long game, literally, you can lose fat fast or you can lose it forever, but you got to pick one. Because if you lose it fast, it's not going to stay there.
That's what I've noticed that PEDs have helped with a bit, is allowing my body to adapt quicker. But it's not extremely substantial. Like there's still times where, of course, your body will like pull back and be like, you're doing too much, or your cortisol level's too high and you're bloated, etc. But I have noticed that being on PEDs has helped speed up the process, especially compared to when I was competing natural versus competing right now. I feel like I can go harder right now and my body will still respond. Versus before, I had to be a little bit more tactical. I didn't have to work as hard. And it would work out better for me that I wasn't working as hard or dieting as hard. Now the other side to it is, as natural, you kind of have to get the calories really, really fucking low to get as shredded enough. And then if you want to be competitive, then once you're like super lean, super dry, that's when you can like carb up and then fill back out and then look great. But aside from that, being natural had put barriers in my progress because I would be doing things too hard, thinking that I just wasn't doing enough. When really, it probably would have been better that I just saved myself a little bit more time in prep and had a little bit longer of a prep to let my body take it a little easier.
How low were your calories when you were natty? At the lowest?
When I got my pro card, this is when it's a little bit more complicated for me to say this, because I don't want people to come to the assumption that I don't want people to assume anything, because it's going to be hard for me to say everything that I change over the course of the 9 shows.
Right.
When I finally got my pro card and I was on orals, I was eating like 1,100 calories, 1,200 calories. And obviously being on the orals helps keep your fullness.
Right.
But basically, at least nowadays, I notice that I can still do the same amount I can do more cardio, and my body will still respond. Versus before, if I kept doing more cardio and I kept cutting the calories lower, it would respond, but then I would get bloated for a while, and then I would feel like shit, and I would be really fatigued. And it still happens sometimes, but towards the end of the prep, the only time that I felt like it would really work, where I just cut it really hard and I just killed it, was literally only like the last 3 weeks of prep, when you actually have to just deplete yourself and then you just have to be miserable.
Yeah. Honestly too, like the other side of that is the way that diet culture has changed, where people are like, you don't have to go so low in calories anymore. And I think that started with the if it fits your macros, and the shift where people are like, well, you don't have to be miserable dieting. And it's like, well, actually, if you really want to get to like dick skin lean, you have to be miserable. Like this whole, you don't have to suffer.
Right. Unless you're just one of those people with the genetics that naturally have that dick skin. Right. That happens.
You don't have to go as low as you were. Right. But I mean, even Chris Bumstead went down to like 1,500. But even if you're not competing, it can go to 2 different directions. Like people will either take it too far and stay down there for far too long and then just keep adding activity, or they'll never get down there, because and when I say down there, like sub 2,000 for a man, it's not crazy if you're dieting really hard. You just don't want to live there for months on end. Yeah. And then keep adding activity.
Right.
And that's where guys get.
It's a lot more doable to do sub 2,000, like 1,000 to 2,000 calories for 3 weeks. Yeah. Than it was in my last few preps, where I was doing it for weeks on end, months actually.
Yeah, for something like competing, right? You might have to.
In a weird way, even though I do feel like crap right now, I am 1.5 weeks out. And when I was staying lean, just for the sake of staying lean, not for prepping, I was eating 1,800 calories, but I was doing that over the course of 3 years. And I was having a lot of sexual issues. Wow. And a lot of irritation and low energy. The way I would respond to people, I tried my best, but I just couldn't give the same energy and the same empathy and the same attention that I would otherwise. And it would just go on for long periods of time. So the lifestyle was only worth it for so long. Yeah. Until I realized I actually went so hard those 3 years that I think even though prep is hard, I still enjoy this prep a lot more than that.
That's crazy though. There is a level of suffering that we do get enjoyment from, but then also I think, I don't know if you've gone this route using any of the GLP-1s for a cut.
I've never used the GLP-1. I'm very interested in them. Yeah. But still haven't yet.
I have a few friends who compete, and then people who just do photo shoots and stuff, who have used it for cuts.
I think the one thing that I am concerned about is I don't like things that slow my digestion. Yeah. Because I just don't like how it feels.
I've tried them. Like I've been open about trying it, but I wanted just to see how it felt, so that if I had any clients who tried it, I'd kind of know. But there are people who do it every single time that they cut and they feel fine. And part of me is like, yeah, but like the suffering that you go through is like, there's like an accomplishment that comes from that. But then part of me is like, well, that could be really nice to take the edge off, especially with the hunger. But then it slows digestion. So I don't know what the end result will be in the future, but that is gained in popularity where people get, they're cutting and they're like, I'm just going to use GLP-1.
I have been enjoying a lot of podcasts. I was listening to some, actually, you know what? Never mind. I don't remember. Sorry. But I was enjoying a lot of podcasts on Ozempic and microdosing Ozempic. Yep. And the new anecdotes and studies referencing Ozempic's benefits for people with a variety of diseases. So it's been really cool and interesting to hear those benefits. And of course, there's the argument that people who don't need it shouldn't use it. And I agree with that. But there's also my take back of maybe you should check if you potentially have a use for it, because a lot of us have issues that we don't know or we aren't aware of. We just have little symptoms here or there, but there's many of us that don't get it deeply checked out. And I keep running into people constantly that are telling me about their findings in their changes to their diet and how it's helped them, like, all the time. And so it's cool that it's more prevalent now than it was years ago, but like, it's crazy how much diet really affects your whole life, like everything from your perspective outwards, what you see, what you feel, what you experience day to day, how well your focus is. A lot of it is just tied to your diet, and everybody is so drastically different. Someone can literally heal all their issues with carnivore, and someone else can do it by being vegan. It's fucking crazy.
Yes. That's why, like, when people are like, "Oh, try this, it worked for me," I'm like, no. Let's do what works for you. Like, try anything. It doesn't have to have a name. Yeah. Doesn't have to have a label.
Experiment. Have fun.
That's like when guys are like, do I inject sub-Q or IM? I don't know. Try both. See how you feel.
Yeah.
Just try. Like, nothing bad can happen. And I think anybody who's in the health and fitness space, if you feel like you want to give advice, then you should try everything. Like, I've tried every diet on earth. I've tried every fasting protocol, like, just to have experience with it. And again, that doesn't mean that, like, if I tried it and I had a negative experience, doesn't mean that you will or somebody else will.
Yep.
Just try, but make it work for you. Don't put yourself in these, what is the word? Like, have to listen to these rules.
Right.
If you want to be like carnivore with like a side of, extra carbs and stuff, cool.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's like normal, but it doesn't have to have a name. Like, steak and white rice, what's that called? Like, some people will call that bodybuilder food. Some people will call that carnivore because they don't understand. Like, that's like calling keto low carb. Like, and they all go in circles and they all come back around and the pendulum swings and they're all going to have new names, and then there's going to be another diet in the next few years and everyone's going to try it. At some point, we might realize there is no fast fix, and the way that you eat, it is so individual, and people don't realize the power of diet exercise until they experience it. And if carnivore does that for you, awesome. I'm very happy. If it gets to a point where it's not sustainable or it affects your lab work negatively, then maybe we pivot, but goes back to just not judging. Now, if somebody's doing something really stupid, then I might try to sway them another direction, but
If you feel like any of the medications that we spoke about today may benefit you, such as BPC 157, GH secretagogues such as Tesamorelin, IGF-1, oxandrolone troche, Semaglutide, then you can obtain these from Transcend HRT, and the link for that will be in the bio. If you feel like you're experiencing symptoms of low testosterone, such as depression, anxiety, lack of motivation, as well as lack of sex drive, then you can get this checked out as well by getting your blood work done at Transcend, and they will provide you expert medical analysis. Transcend HRT has worked with many professional bodybuilders and pro athletes, such as Thor Bjornsson, Phil Heath, and Jeremy Buendia. And if you feel like this podcast has any relevancy to you, I do believe that this clinic will provide of great benefit to you as well. So we keep going on tangents, which is awesome. I love it. But going back to the sexual dysfunction issues, what are your thoughts on like dopamine purging?
Purging?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Is that like a new thing?
Well, what are your thoughts on just, I guess, managing dopamine levels?
I think now more than ever, because we're always looking for quick hits. Like, do you remember when Instagram was just pictures? That alone was like, oh, cool. Like, just post a picture. Like, all of a sudden, I think you could only like it. I'm not sure comments were a thing when it first came out. But even before that, like in when I was in high school, we had AOL.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, you did?
No, I had an AOL account.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So
People think I'm 25.
Well, I know.
It's great.
I know your real age because I guessed correctly. But we would be in chat rooms, and you would talk to like God knows who, and they would ask you like age, sex, location, photo. Like if you had scanned a photo, like this is how old this is, and I got addicted to being in the chat rooms because I was like, this is so much fun. I had no idea who I was talking to, but I had met my future husband and everything, and like gave him my address, and he sent me mail. And my mom was like, what in the fuck is going on? Who is this guy? I'm 13 and he's like writing me love letters. I have no idea how old he was or whatever. Actually, it's a really funny story. I'm not going to tell it, but like turns out that he and I are now Facebook friends, and we still keep in touch.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was like the weirdest thing. But I was, I competed in cycling in high school, and he was a cyclist. And so we were in like a chat room that I guess talked about that.
What kind of cyclist?
So road cyclist.
Sure. Okay.
What, is that a term for something else? I don't know.
Just fucking around.
I'm like, I don't know. But anyway, so going back to dopamine, no more tangents, because now I'll yell at me. That was a very, very quick way to like get happy, right? Which is pretty much what dopamine does. And so then that turned into chat rooms exploded into, then there's MySpace, which was let me be on somebody's top 8. And if you weren't on the top 8 friends, then, you know, it was all this drama, but then it was finding out about people around you and your friends and what they're into. And then if you posted pictures, then you would get comments on those. And then Facebook, and then Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. Those all of a sudden became the addictions that we now experience, where social media, I don't know how many times a day I'm on my Instagram account and I'm like, what did I do before we had social media and in our pocket? Like we would literally sit on a porch and just stare at things. Do you remember the last time that you were bored ever? Like with no stimulation, nothing?
I mean, I'm a little bit different of a case because I have my own job. I'm my own boss. So I'm stressed out all the time. Same.
But I couldn't picture it like, you know, usually you could only email like on your laptop or your computer. And Charlie, here's a perfect example. Charlie and I were at Disneyland yesterday and we're in line. And I'm like, if this line is like 30 minutes, if we didn't have a phone, what would we do? Because there were times where people didn't have phones to entertain themselves and they're forced to talk to each other. And that's a whole nother issue. But going back to the dopamine hits, I think that if you expose yourself over and over and over to these quick hits, it's similar to exposing yourself to insulin and sugar over and over, where your body's just like kind of resistant to it. And then it down regulates the production of it. And then we need more. And that happens with excessive porn watching, where guys watch so much porn and then they don't get that same experience in person. So then they have to watch even crazier porn to get off or to be able to feel like something is being given to them.
So the reason that I'm asking this is just because there's so many different places that we can get dopamine surges where we can feel that rise. And I think in today's society, I feel like a lot of the reasons why, or I feel like a potential common reason for a lot of men to not feel sex drive, especially when the time is ready, is one, for example, more often than not, it's usually towards the nighttime, towards the end of the day. And after you've had a full day of whatever you've been doing, the dopamine isn't very high at the end of the day. These days, normally we're tired. We're exhausted. Maybe had a long day of work. Could have been so many different factors, right? So many different things. Adding on top of that, the other ways that you can get dopamine, or I don't know, just being on your phone all day. I just feel like this really does take away from the drive. If you are having sexual issues or a sex drive issue. So.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think the porn side, at least, is a big part of that. But people always get dopamine from like food and other stuff too. But I think also too, like sometimes you don't have to be happy all day, every day. I think that people get plagued with that. They're like, I'm supposed to be in a good mood. I need to take something to get in a good mood. It's okay to not be in a good mood.
But then it just flatlines.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
That's why I know it's really hard for us to do this. It's hard for me to do this too. But I just really enjoy cycling everything that I do. Like I don't take caffeine every day. And so the days that I feel like I need it, for example, today, I'll take a good amount. Days like yesterday, where I got really good rest, avoided caffeine at all costs. And it was decent because I got good rest. Last night, shitty sleep for some reason. So dosed myself with some caffeine today, feeling pretty good. And I'll just do that on a regular basis where I'll cycle things that I feel like may be helpful. Another one of those things, for example, is supplements with Alpha-GPC and other nootropics, such as like, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I like using Alpha Brain, for example. And I'll do that on podcast days, or I'll do those on like YouTube shooting days where I know I need to conversate or just talk or even come up with things off the top of my mind. And it helps a lot because on the days that I don't need it, when I come off, then I can rest. And then the next time I hit it again, it still works.
I should take your advice.
It helps a lot. It helps so much. And if I do that, I try that with everything that I do, even like the content I consume. Like it just seems to work with everything. Even like carb cycling, like I'll have a bunch of low carb days. And if I have at least one high carb day a week, it'll just change how I feel. It'll change a lot of different things. And, I wish I could list down all the scientific reasons. Somebody definitely can, but it's not something that I can do right now.
Yeah. But
there's just so many different reasons why.
It'll affect people differently too, depending on what they cycle. I recently got into nicotine, and I have a very addictive personality, so I went overboard with it.
Right.
And I was like, why can't I sleep? Like, why don't I get the same hit? And then I had to like chill. And then, of course, it works good. And then same thing with Adderall. Like if I take an Adderall and I'm like, like I can write 4 novels today, no problem. And then if I kept doing that, it would be a problem.
I think this is just an advice that I like to give, but obviously it doesn't apply to everybody because other people have different experiences. I think maybe for me, it is easier to do this. So I'm not preaching like, oh, I'm a hard worker, like I do hard shit. But I'm someone who's liked to experience as many things as possible just so I have the experience to draw from, which is one reason I just enjoy podcasting, so I could talk to other people who have experienced it too. So I can tell you like I've done a variety of substances, like openly, just transparently saying this so maybe people can relate. But I've done, cocaine, I've done nicotine, I've done kratom, I've done a wide variety of things. I've done ketamine, done mushrooms, done weed. And I can tell you that there's a lot of things that I've completely cut out of my life. Whether or not the people who are listening tend to want to believe me or not, I really couldn't care.
Yeah.
But I've cut out the things that I know just don't suit me. And I've kept in the things I know that do. And the things that do, I cycle always. So nicotine, I have this gum. I don't really do it often, but I'll do it maybe like once a week or twice a week. I was addicted to it for some time. And luckily, I think maybe I just don't have an addictive personality, even though I was caught in a very hardcore addiction with both nicotine and especially kratom. Kratom was really bad. I got like really severely sick, feverish, like was throwing up, had BMS.
I've tried it.
It was really bad. I was like really hardcore addicted. But now at this point, like if I really feel like I need it, then I'll take a... Larry Wheels' new company is White Rabbit. It has like, basically it's equivalent to around, I think, 2 grams of kratom, which is like a decent dose, but it's not a very high dose. So it's good. I'll take like a half a can of that or 1 can of that, depending on why I need it. If I need to perform, if I need energy throughout that day, and I want to make sure I can sleep, then I'll choose, for example, kratom. And that will happen maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. If it's a day where I feel like I can take caffeine until like say 3:30, and then I want to make sure that I can sleep, then I'll take the caffeine instead, so I can still prioritize my sleep. If I have to have the energy later in the day, then, for example, kratom will be like a better option. And so I'll just like choose and pick the things that I know will suit me, and then I'll try to keep it at the minimum effective dose, because I know that whenever I've increased the dose, I felt side effects that started steeping into the quality of my life. Cocaine's another one of those things where I would take it, it just didn't benefit me. Dopamine rush was great while I was on it, but God, did everything else just fucking suck and increased anxiety and all these things. And I don't even have anxiety. Like, I don't even like anxiety. Like, it fucking gives me shit. And so never did cocaine after I did it years back. Alcohol, love alcohol. It's so much fun. I was in a fraternity in college, so I drink a fuck ton. Fucking handle races, pledge class handle races and shit. Yeah. But now I've been sober off of alcohol for, I think, 6 years. And
that's awesome.
If you like alcohol, then drink alcohol. A lot of my friends do, and it's fun. Why not? If you drink it every now and then, fucking do it. Yeah. For me personally, I found that it's benefited me a lot, especially because my career is bodybuilding. So all of these things, for example, like Adderall, I'm prescribed Adderall. I was prescribed it when I was in high school because I couldn't pay attention in class. I could do math, and I was really great at math, but I couldn't do the reading exams or the writing. Yeah, I couldn't do the reading exams very well because it was just hard for me to I had to reread lines over and over again because for some reason I just couldn't keep focus. And Adderall helped immensely. Yeah. So I took Adderall all through high school, all through college, performed way better, got way better grades, but it fucking just ruined my personality. I felt like I didn't have a personality for so long. And now that I'm a bodybuilder, even though I feel like it'll be really helpful in certain situations, I've been avoiding it at all costs for the last few years because, unlike caffeine, it's like cocaine. It's a stimulant that does not pair well with bodybuilding drugs or the bodybuilding lifestyle. You know, like you should not be taking Clen with Adderall or Clen with cocaine. Like you just shouldn't.
No.
Same thing with Tren. You should not be doing any of those together.
Yeah.
So it's a weird life that we live, to win things for the sake of just doing hard shit, but I enjoy it.
No, honestly, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. And for the people that judge against it, it's okay. Do what makes you happy. Makes you happy. I was prescribed Ritalin when I was 12.
12?
Yeah.
Fuck, that's
like
crazy.
when it was like embarrassing to be like, I have ADD, because no one knew what that was. And that's back when it was called ADD. And that was because like we were at play practice in school, and I was rollerblading across the stage, like disruptively. Yeah,
I forgot to mention I was hyperactively like disrupting class all the time. I got like pink slips and all this shit, got in trouble all the time too. Same. So of course they would want to diagnose me with something similar to ADHD.
Yeah. And our parents didn't know, you know. Right. And I remember when I got to college, like my Ritalin would go missing, and I'm like, where, like, who's taking? I didn't understand. I'm like, why would people take my Ritalin? Like, not knowing that it was like one of the most highly coveted things. And then I switched to Adderall, and that worked. Like, I was taking like 20 milligrams at a time, and I think it was once in the morning and then once in the afternoon, and then it would come with that crash. And I was like, I just feel like I don't want to talk to anybody. I hate everybody. I had no personality either. And as a personal trainer back then, like, that does not work. And then Vyvanse came out, and that was like the long release. It was like smoother or something. And then that just made me feel awful. Then I went back to Adderall, ditched Adderall for years, until I got breast implants in 2016. And then that came with, you know, the health issues with that. And then now I will take like 5 milligrams if I need it. But I have so much creativity. But you've
noticed that the 5 milligrams helps a lot more than you taking 20 milligrams.
Oh, my God.
That's all you need. And then, yeah, exactly. It's like, that's why I find it so interesting that people like to, that the ignorant or the less knowledgeable or educated people that like to watch content regarding bodybuilding like open transparent bodybuilding will judge dosage use. It's just like any other drug, man. There's a balance for each person. Like, why the fuck would you want to incur more side effects and make your shit in your life way harder on yourself just to take a higher dose? Like, people do care about how they feel. Not everybody only cares about being the biggest, most jacked person in the world. Like, people care about how they feel. People care about like trying to live past 50 or 60.
Yeah.
Or even 70. People fucking care about that. Just because you want to be the best
doesn't mean. A lot of our
doesn't mean.
clientele are older.
Right. Same thing as Chris Bumstead. I know he's like doing so well, but I believe that he probably cares about his daughter and his wife. Mm-hmm. And if he needs to, he'll probably stop competing to Olympia if he needs to, if he runs into that issue.
Yeah.
It's not always like all or nothing.
No.
When do you feel like what are the final indicators that a man should go in TRT?
When he's exhausted everything that he can do to optimize naturally, which is
what are all those things?
Addressing
listed?
The lifestyle is the biggest part. So if you're going out every weekend, getting hammered, and you drink socially during the week, and so that adds up to multiple drinks, you're not sleeping, you're not working out, your diet is shit, those things have to be addressed. And I will say they have to be addressed whether you go on TRT or not. Like, it's not a panacea that's going to solve all those issues for you and turn you into the Hulk just because you go on TRT. And what happens is when guys get labs done and say they're kind of suboptimal testosterone, or they're kind of, teetering on like, well, you could go on, but all these other things are an issue, or they just don't want to start yet. They want to take a year or several months to really dial the nutrition, the fitness, all that lifestyle stuff in. Then when they've done that, and then they get labs done again, and rarely does the testosterone level change. I've seen it go up maybe by 300 points at the most when somebody's really gotten their shit together. But honestly, it's not going to go into the range that most guys would feel good at. Then, hey, we're in a place where this could be the right next step. And usually that is where the labs don't change, so the guys can see like, hey, yes, you did all that work, and they may feel defeated because they thought that would actually bring it up. But now you're healthy, now you're resilient. Now when you do go on testosterone, it'll be a good experience for you, and it'll just tie everything together. And those guys tend to do well on testosterone at onset versus somebody who is very unhealthy, overweight, has a lot of body fat to lose, and they go on TRT. It's not going to be the best time initially.
Right. That makes sense. This is something that I realized that maybe it is actually good for me to say more in the podcast, but the reason why I don't discuss it as much is there's a lot of people that feel this way, but feeling like the bodybuilding industry or the fitness industry is oversaturated with people saying, eat this, or eat this healthy thing, or consume this, get your 8 hours of sleep. Like, I feel like everybody ever has said that. Yeah. So it's easy for us to assume like, hey, that's important. So that's kind of why I kind of discuss the stuff that's less talked about, just since I think that that's something of interest when I'm speaking to people similar to me that already understand what are the number 1, 2, 3 things that you need to get checked off first before ever doing anything related to HRT, TRT, steroid cycling, PEDs, peptides, etc. The basics, right? But it's kind of really easy to just forget the basics, because I think people get busy, people get really tired, and sometimes you got to miss a workout, and sometimes you don't want to sometimes you want to Postmate some chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream and shit. And it happens.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay too. But one of my boys that I was hanging out with this week, he opened up to me and he was like, bro, like, I have not been able to get it together, and I know this is why. And he showed me his Postmates, and every single day he Postmated something insane to his house, like late at night, like a fucking cheeseburger and fries, and then like ice cream and cookies and shit, or like candy, and just like he would just splurge. He would like diet hard, and then he would splurge. And That's why even now, again, going back to finding that balance where you can make sure that you stay to a plan, allow yourself to be flexible. But, you know, if you go hardcore in one place, hardcore in dieting, hardcore in calorie restriction, hardcore in training, or hardcore in like a specific type of range of foods, before you're mentally ready, you're going to fuck up and your body's going to fight you. So I think people should take the step forward, but take it a little easy on yourself.
Yeah. And I think people also think like, you know, oh, getting my shit together means I can never have food I like ever again. And that's not true.
No.
You know, people ask me all the time, like, when's the last time you had pizza, or what do you crave? Like, pizza doesn't do it for me. Cinnamon rolls do it for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Fucking love it.
Well, pizza used to do it for me. But over the course of years, you know, I would just slowly avoid pizza more and more and more until finally I don't feel as much of a need for it.
Like, it's not a thing.
Yeah. Same thing happened with me for sugar. I stopped consuming sugar for like 2 years. It was amazing. And obviously now, as you know, I am back on the sugar train, and sugar is fucking amazing.
It's so good. People get on me for like eating Sour Patch Kids. They're the best.
They're
like,
awesome.
They're amazing. And
right.
Listen, I'm not saying everybody go eat Sour Patch Kids every day, you know, like all of a sudden that's your carb source.
Right.
Like have your chicken and Sour Patch Kids. No.
But I think everything in like literally in moderation, if you really, really mean moderation, can be used as a great tool. There's a lot of amazing people that I've known that have lived 80, 90 to 100 that will discuss how they've done something in moderation and they were fine. And obviously everyone varies, and a lot of these are genetic predispositions. Like if you're someone that's prone to getting lung cancer and it's your genetic predisposition, then smoking every now and then probably isn't a great idea. But like this grandma who lived till 100, who obviously didn't have lung cancer and her genetic predispositions, she said just a little bit of like a cigarette, like every now and then, like every few times a week or something. And she was chilling. She lived to 100.
Listen.
It happens. It can happen.
Yeah. People who do everything right end up with, you know, bad things. So
yeah,
life is short.
It might be just hard and scary for us to get ourselves checked out that deeply. Yeah. I think maybe it's funner to just do the thing that you want to rather than see the blood work and see what you can and can't do. But I think if you ever feel ready to truly conquer yourself, your body, and your life, start learning about your genetic predispositions, get your genetics tested, get your blood work tested, do all the tests that you can, or at least that you are willing to pay for. And once you have that awareness, you can start picking and choosing the things that work for you, and you'll just realize like you can get yourself to live a really happy, fun, highly performative, excellent life with a lot of achievements. I truly believe that.
I can't agree more. There's a lot of power in blood work. And I think sometimes a lot of our guys, they don't want to confront what's on there. And sometimes they get surprised and they're like, oh man, I'm doing really well. And then other times it's like, you got to take care of this. If you want to stay around for your kids, and you got to take care of that.
So for the sake of the podcast, because we talked about it a lot last time.
Yes.
The last podcast you started it with test trend and where you said test trend and
for the mic check.
Yeah.
Test trend,
what a great mic check. Is there any compounds or any cycles where you've noticed anecdotally that men or a guy or somebody has experienced something like sexual issues or other lifestyle issues?
I've had guys, so nandrolone's one of the bigger ones, DECA. There are guys who have literally tried it for a week and all of a sudden they like couldn't perform. And then guys who do fine on it. And now medically, like it's used therapeutically at low dose, like 50 milligrams a week. Guys have had no issues. Other guys, they're like, couldn't get it up within a few weeks. So
have you noticed were you ever able to look into like the dosages that these guys were using for all the things that they were taking, such as like test and NPP? Or was it purely just them being on NPP that you've noticed had made that?
It was more, I don't know if they were taking NPP, but it was the long acting.
Sorry. NPP or DECA, either one.
100 milligrams, which is not high, and it affected them that much. And then other guys who have taken 400 and no effect.
No effect.
It's so varying. And then I've had guys who've actually been on Primo at 300 and experienced some side effects just because of driving estrogen down. Mm-hmm. And then I've had friends who have done 600 plus of Primo with absolutely no issues whatsoever. So
isn't that insane?
It's nuts because
Like,
it's wild. Because then there's guys like, I cannot do Anavar because that shut me down. And I'm like, Anavar?
Right. Crazy.
Like,
yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah.
To be honest, throughout this entire cycle, the compound that made me feel the most uneasy and restless was pharmaceutical Anavar.
Interesting.
Pharma grade Anavar was a troche too. Could melt in your gums. But
yeah,
out of all the things that I was taking, everything else, I just felt totally fine. And for some reason, the Anavar would increase my heart rate and would get irritable.
I have heard weird things happen, and aside from sex drive, but guys are like, yeah, I started sweating or my heart rate increased. So that you are like the third person to say that. And I'm like, wow.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Even though I'm only taking 100 milligrams of Tren for a few weeks, I don't think I really feel anything. Don't feel any bad side effects. So I'm lucky. I'm one of those lucky guys for sure. I don't even feel like a god, to be honest, either. So maybe.
Well, you're smart enough to not be like, well, maybe I should increase the dose.
Yeah, I don't want to. No. I don't want to. Like, I think I look good, and it's never worth it for me to change it, for my mind to change.
Yeah, we don't want to go
there. I don't want to become someone different.
No, I've heard crazy stories with people who've definitely experienced it. I've also heard positives about microdosing it.
I've heard positives too, and that's where I got this from.
Yeah.
I was discussing with some people about how 50 to 100 milligrams sometimes is all you need just to really get a good amount off the special function of Tren to reduce catabolism, right? Which is probably one of the most special functions that it has. So running at 100, I feel like it's doing its job, and I feel fine. So, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, knock on wood for sure. Well, that's the thing is, like, also as long as I make sure that I only run it for this many weeks that I needed to, and I'm going to be off, after the show and everything, and I'll be okay. The paranoia and the paranoia and the paranoid will most likely have them feeling like, damn, is this going to affect me for the rest of my life? Am I going to be different? Maybe they're going to be fucked up later, all these things.
See, that's
maybe
scary.
They don't realize, right? That can be scary. But I think if you have like a good level of checks and balances where you can check off the way that you react to people and be very conscious about it. Not everybody can. It's hard for some people to be self-aware like that. But if you can do that and then also have friends and family, or lucky enough to have friends and family that are there to be able to let you know when you're acting different, I think that's one of the best things that you could possibly have. Same way as like you being self-aware about your symptoms whenever you're saying running TRT for the first time, or you haven't run TRT ever, but you're feeling low testosterone and you just feel like shit. Those symptoms are probably the best indicator of whether or not you actually do need to go on testosterone, even if your test is like 350 and it's within range or something.
Yes. Story of so many guys' lives. I was told I was normal.
I was told I was normal.
You don't want to be normal, man. You want to be weird.
You want to be weird.
No, but you want to be optimal. But yeah, I just hate that. Like I was told I'm in range. Yes, right. Pretty much everybody's in range. It's that large, the range. Like,
let's go jump to these Q&As real quick.
Hope they're good. Entertain me.
Are there any peptides that you're a big fan of, by the way?
Me personally, so like with peptides, I think I've tried all of them before they got popular, but not really in love with any of them. I also suck at injecting. So like injecting every day, like it's just too difficult. I'm lazy. So there aren't any that I can really speak.
It's annoying.
Like, this is powerful.
Right. The only thing that I've been good at, like injecting every day, is 2 IUs of GH, and I can't even do my BPC every day sometimes. I'm just so fucking like,
it's a lot, People don't realize, like, it's just annoying.
Will Jr. 96 ask her opinion on injection frequency on TRT.
So the more often, the better. I would say anything less than twice a week is not going to be the best. 2 to 3 days a week is the most popular. I would say 2 to 3 days a week is where most guys are going to feel great.
I feel like 3 days is great.
Yeah.
Every other day is amazing.
Yep.
I'm extra, and it's funny because we literally just talked about this, but I'm an everyday guy, but everyday injection.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because we just talked about how annoying it is to inject.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's so annoying is like I'm already injecting every day. Now I have to inject BPC
multiple
every day
things.
too. And
yeah,
it gets a little annoying. But being able to do it subcutaneously is so nice because you don't feel it. It's so tiny and it happens like that.
That's what she said.
So,
you don't feel it. It's really tiny. It happens like that.
Been waiting for something from you. Bewitty asks TRT/gear for hypogonadal males. Varicocele, had surgery and it didn't fix it.
So yeah, I would definitely consider that because usually with the varicocele, it's either a candidate for surgery or not. Definitely can affect the guy's testosterone levels. So I would get with a competent provider and discuss it.
Do kiwis increase testosterone?
Kiwis.
Alakandert.
Not that I'm aware of.
I have a feeling this might be a reference to something like Jeff Nippert or something like that. They say that kiwis are secretly anabolic. Yeah. It's the secret to all
I'm not in the know. I feel dumb.
Kenny asks, what are Ali's thoughts on using finasteride for hair loss?
Not a fan. Not a fan. So
Okay, how come?
blocking any enzymatic process is not a good idea. But also, if they Google post-finasteride syndrome, that's usually enough to deter them away.
Yeah.
I hate to say that hair is more of a cosmetic thing, but literally you risk sacrificing quality of life and feeling good over something that, I understand people feel a certain way about hair, but it literally has more side effects that are negative than positive. And I think a lot of guys will take it as a proactive measure without even having a genetic predisposition to hair loss because they think that testosterone is going to cause it.
Right.
So if you have a genetic predisposition and it's going to be inevitable, I would say just consider the ramifications of staying on finasteride long term. But also there are plenty of people who have gone the route of either hair transplant or micropigmentation, shaving their head, PRP, all those things.
Okay, yeah. Or some people who just fucking shave your head, get bald, give a fuck, right? Which I'm sure I will do it someday, but if I enjoy
you have great hair
right now, then I'll keep it. But as far as the statistic, how anecdotally, with your personal experience dealing with clients, how many guys, percentage-wise, have you seen have post-finasteride syndrome or related issues from finasteride?
Personally, because I don't want to say I don't let our clients get on it, but we advise our guys not to get on it. Anecdotally, there is a lot of experiences with the providers that I've associated myself with, and if you look it up on the internet, it'll say it's very slim to none, but that's not the case clinically. And they have found that when it does happen to guys, it is very difficult to treat. So that's why it's scary, is because it's difficult to treat. Okay. And if you lose your erection or your ability to,
right. The reason I ask is I'm not a proponent for either, like whatever choice you want to make, you make the choice. I just want people to be well educated.
Yeah.
I know that the statistic right now on the Finasteride Syndrome Foundation's website is 1.2% of young men who took finasteride for 206 days or longer developed persistent erectile dysfunction. That lasted an average of 4 years after quitting the drug, which is a long time. That's really scary. The percentage is not so scary. 1.2% of men on it.
No.
That's crazy, incredibly low.
Right.
But of course, like, do you want to risk the 4 years afterwards of that issue? That's pretty fucking scary. I have not experienced it. I'm on finasteride right now. And I'm one of the, I guess, 98, 99% of men that doesn't experience it. But I guess at this point, it's just up to you, like whether or not you value it. But I do think that there has been more conversation around the danger and how scary finasteride is, that it's scared almost, seemingly for me, it scared almost all men away from it.
Yeah.
So even though it's only 1.2%. So
according to the internet, though, but
yeah,
trust me, clinically, with the people that the providers I work with have seen, it's a little bit more destructive.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's not just that; it does have other disadvantages that I've brain farted on right now. I feel like I read about it all the time, and I'm like, fuck.
What about minoxidil?
I believe it has similar properties. I don't know exactly, but I think it still has some 5-alpha reductase blocking properties in it. I don't know. I can't remember. The thing is now, like I have like my friend Dave Lee, I refer to people about the finasteride and minoxidil and all that stuff, that I don't stay on top of it as much because I'm like, just go talk to Dave or go read Dave's stuff because he is well versed in it.
Coach Kim asks, is HCG protocols while on blast cycle worth it?
No. If they want to conceive during the time that they're blasting, but it's not necessary. Yeah.
But it's not necessary.
No.
What I do feel like, this isn't based off of any science. This is just based off of anecdotes and experience. So everyone can take away what they will. But from what I've seen, it seems like those who have avoided HCG during a long cycle just require more time to bring up their fertility when they decide not to do it, versus the ones that have done the HCG during the cycle have a quicker time of bringing their fertility back when they do, say, jump off or want to get their wife pregnant and focus more on the fertility. That's just what I've noticed. But it varies off, obviously a lot.
Of course, there's different. And my question would be, were they doing sperm tests during that, before that? We may not know, but I think those are like, that's why if somebody does want children, absolutely sperm test before going on testosterone and during in different frequencies.
Gotcha. C.H. Weingroff asks, how yoked is her amazing husband?
He's so yoked.
He's pretty yoked.
He is.
Yoked in the body, yoked in the mind, for sure. All right. Last one, Tyrone asks, TRT doses for women in normal application?
That's a great question that I always am like, I am the men's health expert when it comes to women. I don't know. I will say when I was on TRT, I was on 6 milligrams a week. And I believe that's on the lower end. So providers that I work with have given women up to 10 to 15. And I think postmenopausal, some women are on 20 to 25.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Cool. Well, that is about all we have the time for the day. But if you were to leave the earth tomorrow,
oh man,
what would be the message you would send to the entire world today?
I would say that I need them to still attend my event in November without me.
Nice.
So I'll answer for real. It's the same one that from last time, like we were kind of circling back to, where just being nice to people and being kind and not judging, because number one, we have no idea what's going on in their lives and why people do the things they do. If they're not being destructive or harmful, just leave people alone and let them do their thing. Then I'll talk about how they should attend. What was
the shoot you saying, by the way? I was going to ask you this at the beginning of the podcast.
Documentary.
Somehow we just keep discussing and going on tangents.
I know.
Never remember anything I wanted to ask.
You're depleted, so you get a pass. But so Generation Iron is doing a documentary on a queen of men's health, which is me. So they approached me about this early in the year, and we started filming a few months ago. So they're basically talking through the whole story of how I developed as a female in the men's health world and what I have looked to do and have done. And it's still very weird to just like talk about, like, it's about me, it's, getting used to that. But, they're doing a lot of behind the scenes filming interviews of people who have been impactful in my life throughout my entire career and how I've gotten to where I've been. And that does end with the event that I put on in November called the Silverback Summit, which I created basically because there are no events out there for men like this. Like there's a lot of women's health events, there's a lot of women's health retreats, all that stuff. But there's no event that brings together, like, this is the truth about everything that you and I discussed today regarding TRT, regarding hair loss, regarding fertility, erectile dysfunction, but also with the things that men crave, which is community, which is business, which is relationships, which is all those things brought together in one room. So I was like, let's do this in a way that's unfiltered, unrestricted, where medical organizations are not saying you can't talk about this, and then also make it fun. So we have really great speakers, some who have been guests on your podcast, Jay Ferrugia being one of them. Michael Hearn and his wife will be there talking about like how they work together as a couple through businesses and their relationship, because I think a lot of guys want to talk about how to work the work-life balance, or actually synchronize work and life, because there is really no balance, especially if you're your own boss like you and I, and navigating those things like parenting and social relationships and even toxic relationships. But basically, I wanted a place where guys felt like they were with like-minded dudes who could meet other guys in a way that was raw, unfiltered. Like, this is the most up-to-date critical information that you can get in the TRT world, in the business, fitness, everything world in one place. So that's in Phoenix, November 15th and 16th.
Nice. Awesome. Where can everybody find you?
At the Ali Gilbert on Instagram, ALI. Just slide in the DMs.
Slide in the DMs, baby. All right. Thanks, guys. If you like to support the podcast, rate us 5-star on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you find a pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the bell button, because it gets us sick guests like Ali. So we'll see you next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You said that really fast.